Hey folks, this is the Studio Vampire Counts Army. Got some models done, some being refurbished, but the add-up is, oh, and by the way, here's the start on our 100 zombies. Ooh. So it's 3,500 points. Yeah, that's a thing. Yep, Rin had a big night last night. A big night of Mass Effect. Mass Effect 3. So folks, this is what happens when you're on Mass Effect and they dumped peanuts on him. I don't know if you can see him there. So, there you go. Pack him up! Alright, Vampire Counts book. So we're going to talk about the Studio Vampire Counts Army. Hi, trying a slightly different angle here so you can see the book, see what I'm seeing. Maybe you can't read it, but at least maybe you can see the pictures and whatnot. So I'm just gonna make some comments here, and also talk about what's going to be in the Studio Vampire Counts Army. The first thing that strikes me is how much synergy there is in this army, and I've really only scratched the surface. So let's start with magic. Is the lore of vampires is really an amazing lore. It's got the signature spell is Invocation of Nehek, which is an augment spell that targets all friendly undead units within 6 inches. And they basically gain d6 wounds plus the caster's wizard level, which is, first off, that's insane. So you've got a level 4 vampire bringing back, on average, 7 or 8 wounds worth of guys per turn. But every time he casts this on a 6, I might add, he hits every unit within 12 inches, or excuse me, within 6 inches, and that could be quite a bit. And it's if you do it on a 12 up, which by the way is not far off. Like you throw 3 dice at that, that's about an 11 base plus 4 for a level 4 vampire is 15. So you've got a really good chance of getting that to go. That would be every unit within 12 inches would get 7 or 8 wounds back. So let's say you have 4 units in that radius, which is quite reasonable. It could even possibly be as many as 5 or 6 units. You're talking about basically 28 wounds worth of guys coming back. And that is just absolutely insane. There's even vampiric powers where you can... Oh yeah. Where you can make things go above the original thing. Summon creatures of the night. Oh no, that's not right. This vampire can use Invocation of Nehek spell to increase units of dire wolves, bat swarms, and fell bats beyond their starting size. But that's actually not that good because it's only infantry that are affected by this spell. So immediately what strikes me is that the infantry is really the strength of this army. And every time you're making an army, you have to consider, well, how is this army going to win? Because you win usually through victory points. So you've got to prevent your own stuff from being killed, and but you also have to kill other people's stuff. So for example, let's say you just had a gunline army. If you could just blow up, 600 points of their models and not lose any of your own units, then, and you only get points now, if I'm not mistaken, by completely killing units. So that makes vampires very strong because even the weaker units, you have to get them all the way down. So if you do the math, let's say a unit charges in and it has, from ranks and a champion or whatever, let's say 16 attacks. Well, that means the most guys you can kill is 16. That's if you hit and wound with everything, there's a maximum number of guys that you can kill. But multiply that by the number of turns. So effectively, you could end up in a situation where you just had so many models coming back every turn that your opponent physically couldn't hack through them all. Even in all 6 turns. Well, easier said than done, but there is a lot of synergy here. So, for example, Dark Acolyte, Vampire adds D3 to casting total whenever he fully cast Invocation of Nehek. So that would give him basically on average an extra 2 wounds of guys coming back every time. So wow is all I have to say. You combine that with Raise Dead, which is the number 4 spell on lore vampires, and that brings back, that creates a unit of zombies. So let's start with zombies, because in the edition before this, zombies, if you look at them, the zombies in the previous edition had, first off, the point cost. They were 4 points per model, so now they've gone to 3 points per model, but their strength and toughness went up from 2 and 2 to 3 and 3, which is absolutely enormous. No other change in the stat line. They are able to get a musician and a standard bearer now, which is a nice feature. They still have Always Strikes Last. Actually, I don't think they had that before. What does Newly Dead mean? All right, so Newly Dead is different from last edition to this edition. What happens is they can be increased beyond their original unit size, which is absolutely fantastic. And now they are, if they're targeted by Invocation of Nehek, that's the basic vampire lore spell that adds D6 plus the wizard's caster level. So that's D6 plus 4, assuming you have a level 4 caster, which, by the way, that's the way I'm seeing it has to go. Oh, whoa, hello. I just kicked the tripod. They get an extra D6 wounds. So the average number of wounds that a zombie unit is going to get back from a level 4 vampire is 11. So quite frankly, if you look at it, let's say a charging unit is getting 16 attacks on these zombies. Basically, just from missing or not wounding, they're only going to do 10 wounds. So you can completely negate, no matter how amazing this unit is, you can pretty much just negate all of their work with a single version of this. The thing is, though, because you're going to want to cast the spell more than one time a turn, it is good to have a necromancer on hand. And in fact, because you can always default to the signature spell and kind of automatically get that, it is good to have multiple spellcasters. Right now I'm looking at a level 4, a level 2, and maybe a second level 2. Because if you just cast this in like bursts over and over again during the magic phase, that is just absolutely insane. Did want to, because we're still on the subject of synergy here. So that's zombies, and they're 3 points each. So with command, it's 160 points for a unit of 50 zombies. And quite frankly, that's really where you got to start. Now, in terms of commissioning an army, there is, like, I think it's like between 7 and 8 to paint a zombie level 3. Yeah, get a deal on that. We have several deals going. Hello, now you can look at me. Huh. We have several deals going. And just make sure you inquire about that if you're doing undead, because you need so many that cost can get up there, but there are definitely ways to do it a lot less expensively. I have we've started doing an experiment where we might be able to get it down to $3 or $4 per figure by just doing artistic license and a lower level, and that's how you're going to get your 100 zombies going. So back to some comments on vampire counts. All right, I want to talk about the Mortis engine, because that had an interesting little tower on it, if I can find it here. Oh, there you go, Mortis engines. It is Blasphemous Tome. Okay, you got to read. I had to read this through like 4 times to really understand what it was. First off, the Mortis engine is a rare choice. It's a new model, fantastic looking figure, and it is 220 points plus 20 for the tome. And guess what? It is let's see, your two, yeah, so you could technically take 2. That would pretty much blow up your rare choices. Remember, your rare choices in a 2,500 point game, it's 25%, so that's 625 points. So you took 2 Mortis engines, you'd have 480, so you'd only have 145 left for another rare unit, and quite frankly, almost everything is more than, yeah, the Terrorgeist is more than that, the Black Coach is more than 145, same with the Vargulf. You'd be down to Cairn Wraiths and Blood Knights. But observe, the Blasphemous Tome makes all wizards within 12 inches gain +2 to their casting result when casting spells from the lore of vampires. So, so it can benefit your opponent, but only if he's also a Vampire Counts army. So, so think about that. Most of the time, it's really only your casters that are going to benefit from it. So imagine, if you will, this is the Mortis engine, and you've got your spellcasters within 12 inches of it, which is quite a bubble, really. And then they're casting Invocation of Nehek, which now affects everything within 6 inches of them, or 12 inches of them. So basically, you've got a thing where you could, theoretically, like let's say this is the Mortis engine, and let's say this, this battery here is another guy within 12 inches, well then if he casts Invocation at 12 inches, this can affect something 24 inches out. So if you place your guys right, this engine can be affecting units positively 2 feet on either side. That's basically a 4-foot spread. So one way I see this army as being very successful is basically breaking your opponent by just the amount of wounds that you can get back. Because those zombies, you don't have to wait for them to kill something to bring them back. You can just start adding ranks to the zombies at an insane rate, adding like, oh, here's 10, here's 10, here's 10. Well, and that's another thing. If you need 100, if you're going to run 2 units of 50 zombies each, then, well, you have to have more models than that. And that's the challenge of a Vampire Counts army, which I'm trying to work around right now by making it more affordable to get those massed units. So, all right, yeah, so hold on, there is a downside. If any wizard miscasts within 12 inches of 1 or more models with a Blasphemous Tome upgrade, he must roll twice on the miscast table. The miscasting player's opponent chooses which result applies. Now, you might think, oh, well, that's a downside for you, but you have to think that through, which is basically, if you throw only 2 dice at Invocation, what's the average of those 2 dice? It's 7, right? You add your caster level of 4, now you're to 11, plus 2 for the tome. Oh, and by the way I'm reading it, it is not cumulative. So, but you're at 13, so that's a decent casting value for just 2 dice, and your chances of miscasting are pretty low at that level. So that's why I'm thinking multiple casters casting that spell, use the Mortis engine strategically placed to basically boost everything. And so that's, to me, that's a Vampire Counts. They've got these life-sucking tar pit units to tie up strategic opponents. So if your opponent has sunk, like I did in the last battle report, if they've sunk 800 points, effectively a third of their army into 1 unit, not a problem. Send the 160-point zombie unit up there, pin them down, while your hard-hitting units go after the rest of the army. A disadvantage of the vampires is their movement. They do not move very fast. You need to be within 12 inches of the general in order to move your normal rate. There are some ways around that. First off, units, oh, by the way, here's a Mortis engine. Nope, that's a Coven Throne. Hello. I got distracted. So a vampire, models with the vampiric rule don't suffer that disadvantage. Now this is important for your units that have to operate on the edges instead of your big old tar pity death ball in the middle. The units that operate on the edges could be Blood Knights. Oddly, they have a very weird unit size here, right? Cavalry is 5. Oh no, Blood Knights only need 4 guys to make a unit. And they're 50 points a model, which is expensive, but they do have Vampiric and a movement of 8. And if there is heavy-hitting cavalry in this game, this is it. And that's what struck me as strange about the Vampire Counts book, because you look at the core units, and basically you just have these grunts that are just not that good, but can be raised, notably the 3 types of infantry. Crypt Ghouls, I think, did lose a slight edge to zombies and skeleton warriors. And quite frankly, I'm glad to see it. I'm not that big a fan of the Crypt Ghoul figures. They are a little bit of a hunched carpet for me. They look great if you're down at their level. So they're not bad. I'm just saying, skeleton warriors, this is definitely the coolest looking of all the core units. The models they made for those last edition are just absolutely stunning. I can't get enough of them. On that note, wow, I really am going off on a tangent. Zombies, I recommend getting out your bits box and sprinkling in some different types of arms and heads. You can take a regular head and just paint it all pallid, gangrenous flesh, and that makes just a fine zombie. Switch out arms and weapons and stuff like that. The zombie plastics that are put out by GW are a tad dated. Also mix in some Mantic stuff. But Mantic ghouls are really good. They make for some very dynamic zombies. And that's what we're doing for our 100 zombies, is we're just mixing in so much that it'll be hardly any of them will be, the same as another one. So anyway, to continue, so that is one thing I noticed, is you have these you have basically specialty hard-hitting units, and then you have these grunt units. So back to marching, is models with Vampiric rule can march, and oddly, these are the ones with high movement values, which is great. Notably, in the rare units, the Blood Knights are Vampiric. They're basically like little vampire characters that are mounted. They have Strength 5 base, 2 attacks, Toughness 4, and 2-up armor saves, so that makes them very hard to kill. But they do only have 1 wound, so they are susceptible to things that do auto wounds, and like Skaven Globadiers and Plague Sensor Bears, for example. The Vargulf, oddball, has Vampiric as well. Now the Vargulf I thought was a champ in last edition, and we certainly had a lot of commissions for them. So let's take a look at that model. Even though, quite frankly, there are a lot more sexier choices back here, because they have made new kits and the new things have fantastic rules. Mortis engine is really quite a must. There's just the Mortis engine is just ridiculous. And not necessarily overpowered when I say ridiculous, but it has so many cool rules and such a cool model. It's really hard to pass up. And as I explained, it can create that amplifying bubble around it with the blasphemous tone. So the Vargulf is the same cost. The Vargulf is a winged model. It looks like this giant bat creature, but it does not have flight, which is really kind of an unusual feature there, but it does move 8. It can't be surrounded, so you don't get any bonuses. Its toughness went down, which is extremely bad. I don't see why they would do that. But its initiative went up to 4 from 2, which is nice. It looks like all the other stats are exact. Oh no, toughness went up. Nope, I'm an idiot. Toughness is the same. I'm looking at wounds. Yeah, 4 wounds, 4 wounds. Right? Laugh it up. Undead Vampire. It does still have hatred. Has terror. Vampiric. Vampiric's really the big one. That really was my point. And it has regeneration. Now there's something that makes regeneration better. I wonder what it is. What could possibly be a force multiplier here? Oh, it's the Mortis engine again. Mortis engine has a reliquary, that has a 2d6 inch dark aura that you roll every turn. So that's 7 inches. Enemy units take d6 hits equal to the current turn number, which is, I mean, could be insane. I mean, that could wipe out a weakened unit and definitely peel off a rank. But it also improves the regeneration rolls up to 4+. So that is a definite force multiplier and gives regeneration 6+ to units that don't already have it. And I have to tell you, that can really make a difference when you're talking about units where the only way to defeat them is to do a lot of wounds. Well, guess what? If they have that 6+ regeneration on them, they're on average going to be, it's going to be blunted. So vampire counts is all about the numbers, as far as I can tell. And what else? One unit I did want to point out, it's a special unit, it's fell bats. So you've got these, they basically have an Empire, foot trooper profile, except for they have 2 wounds and 2 attacks. They are war beasts, I'm not sure what that means, but they're 16 points a model, which is pretty cheap for what they do. They fly, but what really struck me as I was reading through this is their unit size is only 2. So these are harassers. These guys can take out or tie up artillery, and so quite frankly, I would have as standard in a Vampire Counts army, I would have standard the fell bats. But it did make me wonder what the deal with fly is. Like, because they can't march, and if I'm remembering right, there is such a thing as a flying march. So let's see here, swoop. So yeah, it has, they only move 10 inches, basically, because they would need, as outliers, they would need to be within 12 inches of the general in order to march. And quite frankly, they cannot, they can't do that. They're just moving 10 inches. So they are a bit slow moving. But let's take a look at what war beasts are. War beasts are basically, they just have swift stride. So that makes their charge and flee just a little bit further. So, but fell bats, I would not take a Vampire Counts army without taking at least 6 fell bats and running them in 3 units of 2 each. All right, let's move on. We've got, oh my gosh, what else was it? Oh, the other thing, which I don't understand what the implications are, but in 8th edition, you can take 25% of your points in heroes, and there's no limitation. So, for example, and some of them are really cheap, like the Cairn Wraith. This is the one I'm looking at for potential abuse. They're 60 points each. They're a hero now. They have a great weapon, and they're ethereal. And that's the weird thing, is ethereal means you can move through solid objects, but the big one is and I just want to make sure I'm telling you the right thing here, is that they can only be affected by magic weapons. Close combat attacks are magicals, only wounded by spells, magical attacks, and magic weapons or effects. Ethereal creatures cannot be beaten in close combat by mundane troops, because combat results are not... Oh, they can be beaten. Wait, ethereal creatures cannot be beaten in close combat by mundane troops, because combat results are not wholly dependent upon casualties. I think they meant to say can. So that's the problem, is if you run a Cairn Wraith into the front side of a ranked up infantry unit, and the infantry unit gets banner and 3 ranks, well, you only have 3 attacks, so the biggest combat result you're going to get is 3. You're probably going to get less than that, so you're probably going to lose by 2 and evaporate. So a single Cairn Wraith can't take on a unit. But I was thinking, what if you spent 600 points and got 10 Cairn Wraiths and just started running them around like some kind of insane locust swarm with massive undead sides on them? So now you've got, and this plays into the, hello, you get to look at me again. It's, Shannon looks up, she's like, please, no, I don't want to. it's that what is kind of the meta game with vampire counts? Again, how do you win? And that is, you win as long as you can keep getting those spells off. And so that means you've got to kill that level 4 wizard. So when I was looking at making vampire counts force, I was thinking, how am I going to get things that can, because typically an archmage will run you 200 to 300 points, and that's with magic items and whatnot. I think some of them are, no, it's about 200 to 300 points just to get a level 4 wizard. But that level 4 wizard typically, at most, is going to have toughness 4 and 3 wounds. So I was thinking, what can I get that is going to create a problem for that wizard and can reliably pick him off right out of a unit, just run up. And that is, I'm looking at Cairn Wraiths. They got a 6-inch move, and if there were 2 or 3 of them on a single wizard, you could have a very good chance of taking them out. But then if you're using 3, because they're probably going to lose the combat, but you could do them one at a time, if I'm not mistaken. See if you kill the wizard, and then attack the troops. I'm not sure how that works exactly, because they are the same initiative order, but they are heroes, so they're not attacking, necessarily in bulk. If someone knows to answer that, by all means, post it. So you've got, 3 attacks. They're only strength 3, but they do have a great weapon. But that is a problem because they are striking last, but yes, they're ethereal. That means if there's no magic weapons in that unit, you should be able to pretty much tell ahead of time just by seeing, where heroes are. That means that you can't be hurt. It's just combat results. And then I was thinking, well, what if it were 5 Cairn Wraiths? Let's do the math on that. And so you charge into the front of this infantry unit. You cause terror for starters. I don't know if you have to make 5 separate terror tests as each one of them charges in. Something tells me you probably don't have to do that. But you're looking at 15 attacks with great weapons at strength 5. And that, now you're getting somewhere. Now you could overcome that banner and 3 ranks just through having enough Cairn Wraiths. And that is an assassination run that will take out your opponent's wizards. And I think if you're playing vampire counts, that would basically be game, set, and match if your opponent's trying to dispel you when you've got +4 on the dice. Another interesting power is, first off, vampires can double up basically on their magic items because they get magic items and vampiric powers. And one interesting army that I would definitely take in a larger game every single time is a Master of Black Arts, which allows you to re-roll one of the magic dice when determining the strength of winds of magic. So let's take a look at how that works. So, let's just roll. Okay, a 5 and a 2. So the opposing player gets the highest roll in dispel dice. So here you're looking at 7 casting dice to 5 dispel dice. So all things being equal, and the dispel does win the tie, so this is actually a pretty weak magic phase. So you have to remember, it's this lower dice, that's what determines how far ahead in power dice you are over your opponent's dispel dice, and that's why the re-roll is so powerful. If one of these is lower, you can re-roll it. Well, there I got a 1, so I just made the situation worse. But it allows you to choose. So you have to, 1, 2, all right, this isn't working out. But you get the point that you can potentially turn a horrible magic phase, like a 5 and 5. I wouldn't re-roll that because the difference between 10 and 5 is almost to the absolute maximum. So the best roll you can get is it boxcars? Yeah, because that means on the net you have 6 more power dice than your opponent has dispel dice. But how can you maximize that? How can you get past that? So like for example, the High Elves have Banner of Sorcery, which I think is one of the best magic phase items out there because it just plain adds dice to your power pool. And right now I haven't read the Vampire Counts book well enough to determine that. But again, back to the Mortis engine, by giving a bonus to your rolls, that's almost like adding extra power dice to your pool. All right, so let's talk about, at long last, let's talk about the studio vampire counts. I'm going to tell you what's in it. It's going to be a vampire lord on zombie dragon and one on foot. Right now, I'm really hazy on what I want to do with my hero choices. I don't know what's good. I haven't tried anything, but there were some really cool models. Would like to point out, if you buy the Terrorgeist kit, which is this one, it comes with a zombie dragon, but it has different options on it. So, so if you use the zombie dragon, you get this other guy. Let's see if I can find him. You get basically this giant ghoul creature as the alternate rider, but he could be put on a 20 millimeter base. There he is, right there. He could be put on a 20 millimeter base and run as a Strigoi Ghoul King. So basically, you've really got, in this one kit, you've got about 500 points of figures, if not more. Probably way more. Actually, like 700 or 800 points worth of figures. So quite frankly, that kit is very, very valuable because you get a foot figure as well as as the advertised thing. So it has extra pieces in it. Same with the Mortis engine. The Mortis engine, you could conceivably, because it comes with a Coven Throne. Let me show you how this kit works out. In fact, I have the kit downstairs, but I'm going to show you on this picture. Is these flying banshee-like creatures can be put on 20 millimeter bases. So if you do a Coven Throne, you've got these extra banshees. They could be turned into cryptors or banshees, which are now characters. Cairn Wraith and Tomb Banshee are both characters. So basically you get 3 characters out of that kit. And or if you did it as the Mortis engine and used these on it. And by the way, on the studio one, I'm not putting these flying banshees on there. I think the model is strong enough without them, and I think it'd be really cool to have those on bases. They are basically figures in their own right. The Coven Throne, same thing. If you have those extras, let's see if I can find the picture for that. You've got basically these 2 pallid handmaidens, which could quite easily be converted into foot figures. Even though they are reclining, I think that would be a bit of a challenge. You might just do like a 40 millimeter base and have them have a bigger footprint. So anyway, so that's so in the studio army we have a Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon, Vampire Lord on foot, Necromancer. I think we got a White King. Yes, in fact, we definitely did. I think they make great battle standard bearers because they have a 5 toughness, and a BSB needs all the protection it can get. And the reason for that is if you take a magic banner, now all of a sudden you can't buy magic items, which is pretty sad. Although I don't know if you need a BSB and then Undead Army. I'm not sure what the effects are. I think they just make you lose 1 less guy or something like that. So I'm not sure how good those are. So we're going to have some Tomb Banshees, Cairn Wraith. So Tomb Banshee, Cairn Wraith, and Crypt Horrors are all going to be the same. Excuse me, Cairn Wraiths. Why did I say Crypt Horrors? Oh, that's a separate thing. So Cairn Wraiths are all going to be the same thing. Yeah. That is, and they can be used as both. Yeah, it even says in here, if you just turn them into a unit, this is the stat line for those. And really, this unit, it's 50 points per model here and 60 if you take them as a hero. So I think those are strong, and I think they create like a problem. They're harassers. They're like, okay, now deal with this. And if you have a lot of stuff with Ethereal in your army, that is tough to work around. All right, zombies, 100 zombies, probably more. We're going to probably end up more like with 150 because you need the extra ones for what you raise or bring beyond the original unit size. Skeleton warriors, we're looking at 100 skeleton warriors. I might reduce that to 50 as I feel less ambitious as the project goes on. We already have 20 crypt ghouls. I'm really just throwing those in. I'm really not sure where they're going to fit in the lineup. Because quite frankly, because of those bubbles I was talking about, like you want everything to be within a tight radius, I'm thinking it is better to have fewer and beefier units. So 2 units of zombies, 2 units of skeleton warriors, starting at 50 each is really basically a solid core. Not sure what the crypt ghouls are going to be doing. I'm bringing I have 10 dire wolves. They have vanguard and a move of 9, so they are doing okay on their own as harassers. But at 8 points each, well, it's still not bad for 80 points for that unit. Can possibly turn the tide at a critical moment. We don't plan on doing any corpse carts, but I have some ideas for that you'll have to see later on. Right now I don't have any grave guard on order, but we desperately need them. I'd like to put in a unit of 30 there because they are infantry and they get brought back just as well as the other units, and I think that is a giant deal. Bringing back 10 grave guard could just make your opponent cry, because you have to multiply it by the number of models. So let's say you do Invocation of Nehek, you roll d6 plus your caster level, which is 4, let's say you get 8 guys back. So 8 zombies is worth 24 points. 8 grave guard is worth 88 points. So there's that. Black Knights, not taking them at this time, although I think the models are really cool. Cryptors, we do have 6 Cryptors coming. We're doing 2 Fell Bats. I just want to experiment with them. I think we will boost that up to 6. No Bat Swarms, no Spirit Hosts. We are Hex Wraiths. We're just too cool to pass up. They are Ethereal. They have a thing where if they move over an enemy unit, they do Strength 5 hit per guy, which could potentially just wipe out a smaller unit. But they're only movement 8, and they can't march unless they're near the generals. So right now, and at 30 points each with only 1 wound, but they are ethereal, but if they get blasted with a magic missile or whatever it is, they are going to evaporate pretty quickly, and they're pretty spendy. They're pretty spendy units, but the models are too cool to pass up. We're not doing Vargeists at this time. For rare, we're taking Cairn Wraiths. I have a Terrorgeist coming, which is an absolutely fantastic model. I just couldn't pass it up. And a Mortis engine. Oh, and we've got a Coven Throne floating around in there too. Although now that I'm looking at it, might just have to go 2 Mortis engine. Although there's no law in a friendly game where I couldn't just plop down the Coven Throne and say this is a Mortis engine. And, you know, I think you could probably get that through. So Studio Vampire Counts is 3,500 points. And quite frankly, the more I read about Vampire Counts, the more I'm loving them. And definitely contact us if you think you might want us to do a Vampire Counts army for you. And inquire within for specials, because we are working really hard to figure out ways to get that, get the budget in a manageable condition. So thanks for tuning in. Now that you've listened to me, I think for 40 minutes about Vampire Counts.